Live from Radio Row in Minnesota, it's Levack Goz on 104.5 The Team.
Once again, I want to thank our friends over at Bud Light for getting us out here. They are always great helpers and sponsors of the show, as always. So earlier this morning, we were sitting here getting everything set up, and Jen Mueller walked by, and I went, hey, don't forget us. Like we were walking along, making friends with everybody. You walked right by us. You big leagued us because you have a Super Bowl ring.
That's not exactly how that story is.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see why your inbox is full of insults and complaints.
Show her your inbox one time.
That's
no, but in all seriousness, you were cool. You came through. You gave us candy and everything, and it was chocolate with Pop Rocks in it.
Yes.
I did not know this, but my co-host Goz either has never or has been so long since he had Pop Rocks that when he started eating it,
Yeah, you guys all left out. I was freaking out, man.
It looked like a.
Do you want to do it again, on the air?
Well, I'm down. Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
I guess so.
But
here we go.
Jen, you are the Seahawks sideline reporter.
I am.
You've been writing. Oh, nice. Thank you. I'll take more candy.
I'm getting in trouble for chewing on the air, but I don't mind. These are good.
And you got a new book out, The Influential Conversationalist.
Yes.
What is the take? What is that? I mean, I know what it means, but what does it mean from you?
It is my take on leadership. And I'm not an expert when it comes to leadership, but I'm really good when it comes to conversations and knowing how to make the most of those. Most of the conversations that people see me have are with athletes in locker rooms. And right now we're watching Pop Rocks explode in his mouth.
He's like completely right.
Go on with your answer, please. I'm sorry.
But it's like you're pained. It's not. This is not a painful experience to eat chocolate.
His face is like I can only imagine if you showed a caveman a lighter.
Yeah.
like, oh, magic! Oh, candy that make noise and pop in mouths.
I just feel like I'm lost, and that's the pain now. What's happening to me? Where am I? You had a really nice answer. Sorry I interrupted you. Something about Pop Rocks.
Yeah, I was talking about Pop Rocks. I was just saying that a lot of the conversations that fans in the Northwest would see me have are interviews with athletes. But it's the conversations that you have with people during the course of the day that give you an opportunity to show that you are ready for more responsibility, whatever that is. So it's kind of my practical take on leadership. I don't think people talk to each other enough. Social media is not talking. It is a form of communication that can be valuable, but we're losing the ability to build relationships and have conversations. It's decreasing the amount of influence you have. You think that social media is giving you more influence, but being able to do this, what we're doing right now, with key influencers, that's how you get a promotion. That's how you get the next opportunity. That's how you get a raise. So that's what the book is about.
So I shouldn't put your ring on Twitter, is that what you're saying?
You are more than
I know that wasn't a good setup into that, but I'm just going to do it anyway.
So
at 104.5 The Team.
Seahawks sideline reporter, you have a Super Bowl ring, which I think is amazing. Now, when you were here before, we had a quick minute to catch up, get to know each other a little bit. And I told you that when you pointed out that you wish they had the second one.
Right, I needed one to balance out on my other hand, yes.
I might be partially responsible for the Seahawks loss in Phoenix.
I'm waiting to hear this story.
So media night in Phoenix, about 4 years ago, I'm walking around. And that year I was on fire, man. I picked Ohio State to win the national championship in like week 6. I was good with predictions. I was doing really well.
Okay.
So my co-host at the time goes, I want you to meet Malcolm Butler. And no one knew who the kid was. And he goes, all right, come on, Kreskin, make a prediction for him. And I was like, I think you're going to have like 1 or 2 really big plays and you're going to win the Super Bowl. Not even thinking, just saying it. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, as I look down from my seat in the media section, this Patriot has an interception right in front of,
It's a good thing there's a lot of equipment and a table separating the two of us right now, because that was one of the most painful nights of my entire life.
For you, I was sitting next to Patriots fans.
Well, my in-laws are Patriots fans, so I have to be careful about that.
How does that happen?
I know. My husband's from New Hampshire. So, that's the team that they cheered for. My husband knew better than to cheer for that team, though, as he was in attendance at that game and staying, obviously, with me in my hotel room, or he would not have been staying with me in my hotel room had he chosen to celebrate that. Yeah.
So were you a Seahawks fan before you became their sideline reporter, or did you fall in love with them as you got to know them?
I fell in love with them as I got to know them. I grew up in Texas, so my quarterback was Warren Moon growing up. I watched the Oilers play, but the more I got into just kind of football, it wasn't until college that I really started, deep diving every week into football games. And then he moved to Seattle, and I hadn't watched a whole lot of the Seahawks, but their personalities are great. The game of football is awesome. And when you're around them as much as I am, on the plane, in, practices, locker rooms, hotels.
Well, I'm sure you got great stories. Maybe we'll start with that Super Bowl 49 finish. Was there a story that you didn't get to put on the air that you remember the end? You're like, wow, if this had made the air, or this moment always stands out for me for covering that team losing in such dramatic fashion.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't a specific moment, as it was walking into that room and feeling how shocked they were, and just the sadness and the emotion of all of these men, and just you can't quite put into words what it feels like when you just walk in and you're immediately hit with, guys crying or guys just staring in disbelief at the floor, not having taken off their shoulder pads or anything after the game. I think that was it, realizing how hard it is to get back. That year was a tough year. When you're the Super Bowl champions, man, everybody is gunning for you. And it was a hard-fought year, and to get that close and to have it happen like that, it was just one of those... it was tough.
Jen Mueller with us right now, Seahawks sideline reporter. Her book, The Influential Conversationalist, out. Now, I pick on one guy on that team more than anyone.
Okay.
You clearly like him a lot more than I do, because he wrote the preface for your book. Is that?
Doug Baldwin wrote the foreword for my book.
Angry Doug Baldwin.
Well, he's angry with some people. Rarely when I talk to him, but, I feed him, candy. So there's that. Right, yeah. He doesn't mind the Pop Rocks.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to SMU.
SMU. Oh, very nice. I thought I was going to say, did you go to Stanford with him? Is that why he likes you? But
no. You know what? Okay, so here's my story with Doug. So Doug, undrafted, free agent, gets signed. So he and Sherm were college teammates together, right? And that was kind of unconventional, because Sherm had been a wide receiver that had been converted to DB, and you're watching him in training camp that year, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like the reads on the ball, just it wasn't him now as a cornerback, right? So you're like, okay, but Sherm was great, and Sherm was nice. And then there's Doug, and you're like, man, Doug is making all of these plays. So it's the fourth preseason game. I finally go to interview Doug, because at this point it seems fairly clear-cut that he is going to make the team. But up until that point, I don't want to jinx anything. I go to Doug. I ask a question. I have no idea what the question was. It was so bad. It just rambled. Like you start to ask the question, and you forget your train of thought, and you come back around. And Doug stood there, and he answered it as if I had just asked the best question in the world. And he's a rookie. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, my gosh, thank you. He's like, well, what did you do? I was like, you should have just told me that I was an idiot and asked me to repeat the question again. And he didn't. And ever since that day, we've been like this. He's been my go-to. And Sherm that year, this was before Sherm was Sherm.
Right, this is before that. Don't you ever talk about me.
It took 2 injuries for Sherm to get into the starting lineup that year. And when he did, we'd come off the field, and he'd say, you want to come and talk to me today? Because, nobody was interviewing him. I say, yeah, I'll come and talk to you today. So after I got something to say, you can stop by my locker. You're like, you can do the interview. Yeah, okay, sure. Fast forward to now, you can't even get close to Sherm, because there's 35 people around him, and so now he's taken to calling me out in the media for not being at his locker, because now I'm big time in him. It's actually kind of very similar to the story that you welcomed me on the air with.
Well,
so maybe there's something to that. I don't.
So it's easy to get a quote on Doug Baldwin. Easy to get a quote at one point with Richard Sherman. Can you get something controversial ever out of the quarterback, Russell Wilson? Is he this robotic with you guys off camera and on camera?
He is very consistent in his answers. Yes, and
that's how you get a Super Bowl ring right there. Yeah. We're like, do you change his oil? He's consistent. We know what to expect,
and that is very true. I would say this. He shows so much more restraint than I ever could at an interview. Clearly, I'm feeding you candy and I'm making fun of people, right?
Which is why we like you.
This can be a regular bit. But so many times that people would try to goad him into things or get him to say the wrong things. And, I will say this. It's frustrating when you ask, for a quote about Doug, right?
Right.
And he doesn't even want to just let it be about Doug, right? It's about Tyler Lockett and Paul Richardson, which is great. He doesn't want to just single one person out, but there are times where it's like, yeah, but I just need you to talk about Doug's release on that play and why that one worked. And we'll come back around to Paul Richardson later, you know.
We, as a team, were very successful today. I don't know the exact play you are speaking of.
It doesn't sound quite like that.
It's a little, I know there was a lot of personality in what I just said.
You know what I can't wait for, though? I can't wait for him to get a few more years into his career. The most interesting people to interview are the ones with life perspective and had things happen to them, right? And he's had things happen, but he's still at a point in his career where everything has to be buttoned up. Matt Hasselbeck at the end of his career, and Matt was always great, but he was so great just to tell you a story. You know, Mike Holmgren, when he was in his final year in Seattle, man, those press conferences, they lasted for 45 minutes because all you do was tee Mike up, and he would tell you stories from 20 years ago coaching.
That's cool.
I can't wait until Russell gets to that point of his career where he feels comfortable enough just to tell you some of the stories.
Jen Mueller with us. You brought up Matt Hasselbeck. There's a chance he's going to replace Gruden.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I love Matt Hasselbeck on the air. I think he is smart. He obviously knows football, but he's got the personality where he can tell you a story. And when he talks about football, he's not talking down to you. I really think that Matt is a great call for that.
So I'm looking through the sheet, and I just want to know before. You know, it's pretty standard stuff for the most part. Like things you might want to talk about. You know, the Seahawks 2017 season. Okay, her Super Bowl ring. Like it's very cool. You were nice enough to let us take a picture of it. You know, her take on sexism in sports. That's a landmine right there. And you just teed it up. Like what is your take on sexism in sports?
Well, it depends on which part you would like to ask me about.
I don't know. Let me think of a good one.
Are you trying to avoid the landmines that you could be facing?
No, not me personally. No, they won't. They don't put women around me. They're too smart for that. I listen. See, you can't call me a sexist or any kind of iss because I'm rude to everyone. So I'm just a jerk.
Oh, okay. Well, now that I know that's what we're dealing with.
That's all it is. Yeah, but I think it's bold. I think it's brave. You know, you're pushing a book, and look, sure, controversy is one way to do it, but that's a real easy thing for some hosts to go, so tell me about Michigan State then, or whatever. So what is your take?
So here's what I would say. I think the question that drives me crazy most is anyone that starts with, as a woman. As a woman, how much harder is it for you in the locker room? As a woman, how hard is it for you to be in sports? As a woman, it drives me nuts. Right? Because there's a perception that it's harder for me than it is for you. It is hard to succeed in this business. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're male, female, alien. It does not matter, right? Don't assume that it's harder for me because I actually have an advantage if I'm the only female in a locker room. Guess who they remember? Guess who is pretty easy for them to build a relationship with because they notice every single time I'm in there. I don't get lost in the sea of faces, right? It could be intimidating if you choose to look at it that way, or you can find the positive in that and say, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I naturally build relationships. They naturally trust me, and I don't have to work hard to stand out, be noticed, to get the next opportunity. Now, I think when you start dealing with some of the other controversial stuff, part of this just comes down to having conversations, right? We all need to be better at having conversations with people, seeing people as people, and having conversations. So I didn't mean for it to be as controversial as just kind of a reminder that it's not different for me than it is for you. Stop telling women that it's so hard to do this job. If you want more women in them, don't tell me how hard it's going to be, because why would I ever want to do something that's extra hard?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah.
Let's find the silver lining. Let's learn how to communicate better, and you can do whatever you'd like in your career.
I love it. I very rarely read. I'll put that out there in the beginning. But I think I'm definitely going to check out The Influential Conversationalist, even with Doug Baldwin involved. Even though.
Maybe you will like Angry
You
Doug.
gave me 3 pieces of candy. I have to read the book.
Did you 3? I'm taking yours.
That
was a very good answer, by the way. I thought we were diving out of grenades. I'm like waiting for Woods and our producer. Get out for this
because
one.
I can't hear the producer. I'm just happily yapping along.
I love it. Goz wants another one of the Pop Rock candy. What do you want to go into, like one of your like tilted dog head poses for another 5 minutes, Goz? Is that what you want?
I'll be fine.
He's so excited to be so close to a Chick-fil-A. He doesn't care.
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite. So good.
Jem Mueller, we really appreciate you. You're
Absolutely.
great. A lot of fun, and we're going to bother you more.
I would love to. Yeah.
You just made friends, which is probably the worst thing that you could have done.
Well, or the worst thing I could have done was stay up till 2 a.m. drinking big beers at Glick's. So there was that too. Have you been to Big
And you
Beers?
didn't call?
This should have been the lead.
Listen,
Talking about burying the lead.
I know.
Have you not been to Glick's?
I don't know what Glick's is.
Glick's is the oldest bar in Minneapolis. When you go into Glick's, this is a tip for you and the audience. You don't just want a beer, you want a big beer.
Okay. I say that everywhere I go.
Beer.
That's just awesome. I finally found my home.
You need a big beer from Glick's.
All right.
How many big beers did you do?
I don't like to share that information.
A lady never tells.
While some people would say it's impressive, other people would say she's got a problem.
I am impressed with your problem. Is it Elaine?
Yeah.
Elaine Massey is going to join us. We're on Radio Row. Jen, I'm going to post about your book. This is really cool. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry that Goz got freaked out by a piece of candy.
That could be the highlight of my day, actually.
We're live from Radio Row. We'll be back next.